The bell above the entrance gave a gentle chime as Jackson stepped inside Aroma Bruise, the coffee shop chain's shining flagship location. At 45, his presence didn't exactly scream new hire. His clothes were unassuming, practical. His face carried the quiet tension of a man trying to disappear into the background. Today was his first day. Not as a manager, not even as a consultant, a trainee. And he was ready to earn every glance of skepticism that might come his way. The store manager, Marcus, clocked him instantly. His eyes, sharp with judgment, scanned Jackson up and down like he was an item returned past its expiration. "You're the new guy?" Marcus sneered, the edge in his voice slicing through the morning air. "Bit late in life to be starting from scratch, huh?" Before Jackson could form a reply, Marcus's elbow knocked over a full latte. The paper cup spun and crashed, sending warm milk and espresso splattering across the white tile. A hush swept over the cafe. Without missing a beat, Marcus flung a soiled rag at Jackson's feet. "Clean it up, now." Jackson didn't move for a beat. Humiliation pulsed through him like heat under his skin. He lowered himself slowly, knees touching the cold tile. To the customers, he was just another employee mopping up a mess. But inside, Jackson felt the burn of something deeper, betrayal of the life he used to have, the life no one here knew he came from. His fingers clenched the rag tightly, knuckles whitening. One call. That's all it would take. A single phone call and Marcus would be out the door before the stain even dried. Jackson had that kind of power, but as he looked up, his gaze met those of the other employees. Sarah, the youngest barista, stood frozen by the espresso machine. Her eyes were fixed on nothing. Shoulders slumped. A quiet surrender. Linda, the senior barista, quickly turned away, feigning busy work. Their silence wasn't disinterest. It was the echo of having been there too many times before. No fury, no outrage, just weariness. It hit Jackson like a wave. Firing Marcus might offer a quick fix, but it wouldn't heal the rot. It wouldn't erase the fear buried in the glances around him. If this place was broken, it wasn't just because of one man. It was a culture, a disease. And fixing it wouldn't take a CEO. It would take a human being willing to start at the bottom. Jackson chose to stay. Later, during his short break, Jackson sat in the break room, if you could even call it that. No windows, just old, yellowed walls and the ever-present scent of stale coffee grounds. He unwrapped his sandwich, not because he was hungry, but because he needed something to do with his hands. The door creaked open. Linda stepped in, glancing down the hallway as she entered. She shut the door behind her with care, cradling a ceramic mug in her hands. Steam curled upward, carrying the aroma of fresh brew. "What he did out there," she began, her voice barely more than a breath. "That wasn't right." She placed the mug in front of him, an offering of solidarity. Jackson looked up at her face, seeing lines drawn not just from age, but from years of stress, years of watching, enduring. "You need to be careful," she whispered. "Keep your head down. Do your job. Don't ask questions. It's safer that way." He stared at her, confused but calm. "Safer?" His voice matched her hush. "What exactly do you mean, Linda?" She sighed, the sound long and burdened. Leaning in, as if the walls had ears, she dropped her voice even further. "You're the fourth one, Jackson. Fourth trainee in 2 months." Each word hung heavy in the stale air. "The first one, young guy, bright." Marcus made him reorganize the stockroom 3 times in one day. Just to flex. He quit that night. The second, single mom, fired on the spot for taking a call from her kid's school. Marcus called it stealing time. Linda hesitated, then added, "The third didn't even say goodbye. He just walked out mid-shift, never came back. No one knows why." Her eyes searched Jackson's, a warning disguised as compassion. They all had something, a light, a voice. And now, they're just gone. Back on the floor, Linda's words echoed in Jackson's mind like a slow-building hum. He started to really see the others, not just as co-workers, but as people trapped in survival mode. His gaze settled on Sarah. Her movements were fluid, practiced. There was a quiet grace in the way she worked. During a brief lull, she poured milk into a shot of espresso. The foam blossomed under her steady wrist, shaping into a delicate swan. A smile touched her lips. Small, proud. Then, Marcus's voice cracked through the silence. "You painting pictures or making coffee?" Her hand jerked. The swan collapsed into a shapeless swirl. "We've got orders to fill. Less art, more speed." The smile vanished. Her eyes lost their shimmer, and the weight of resignation took its place. Another spark snuffed out. An hour later, the bell above the door rang again. This time, the energy in the room shifted. An older gentleman with kind eyes and a warm smile entered. Even before he spoke, you could feel the tension ease. "Morning, Sarah," he said, voice like warm honey. "Another beautiful day, huh?" Sarah's face lit up for the first time in hours. "Good morning, Mr. Hungarian. Good to see you." He didn't need a menu. He never did. He leaned on the counter like he belonged there. "You know me, the usual." Jackson watched this simple exchange. The way Linda smiled, the way Sarah's posture relaxed. Mr. Hung wasn't just a customer. He was a fragment of peace in a place where kindness was a rare currency. Sarah made his black coffee with care and set it down gently. "Here you are, Mr. Hungarian, enjoy." He took the cup, lifted it to his lips. A sacred morning ritual. But then, something changed. His smile faltered. He paused. Another sip. Slower this time. A frown began to form, soft but unmistakable. Something wasn't right. Mr. Hung's smile dissolved into a frown, soft and confused, like something sacred had gone wrong. He held the coffee cup delicately, walking it back to the counter, his demeanor apologetic rather than confrontational. "Sarah, my dear," he said gently, "I hate to trouble you, but something tastes different today. The coffee, it's bitter, almost burnt." The moment shattered like glass. Peace evaporated from the room. All eyes turned. Jackson saw the color vanish from Sarah's face. Her warmth drained away in an instant, replaced by a frozen expression of dread. She opened her mouth, but before a single word could escape, Marcus emerged from his office like a predator scenting blood. He had been listening. Marcus bypassed Mr. Hung entirely, his fake smile stretching across his face like a mask. "You again," he barked, his voice sharp and public. Always so careless. Mr. Hung raised a hand, trying to de-escalate, but Marcus ignored him. He turned to Sarah, his tone mocking. "So sorry, sir. Seems some staff can't manage a simple cup of black coffee. Always daydreaming this one." The slap wasn't physical, but Sarah flinched all the same. Her face turned crimson, not from guilt, but from the kind of shame that only public humiliation can carve into someone. Mr. Hung tried again, his voice kind. "Really, it's no trouble. I just thought—" "Make him another," Marcus snapped, cutting him off. "And this time, do it right." He spun on his heel and walked away, radiating self-satisfaction. Sarah stood rooted to the floor, motionless. She didn't speak, didn't defend herself. Her back was straight, but Jackson could see her tremble. She didn't cry. She didn't lash out. Instead, she reached for a new cup with robotic precision, her movements stripped of artistry. The gentle artist who once painted swans in milk was gone. In her place stood a machine performing under pressure. Jackson stood close enough to see it all. The trembling in her hands, the redness creeping to the corners of her eyes, the tightness in her jaw as she bit back the wave threatening to break. She was enduring, but barely. Her silence screamed. Later, while Jackson was restocking paper cups, Linda approached. She glanced toward Sarah and leaned in. "It's not random," she said, voice low and tight with fury. His cruelty toward her, it's personal. Jackson turned slightly but let her continue. Last month, the company held a contest. Employees were encouraged to create new drink recipes. Sarah spent weeks perfecting one, a honey lavender latte. It was beautiful. Everyone who tried it loved it. She poured her soul into it. You could see the pride in her eyes. Linda paused, her jaw tightening. She gave the entry form to Marcus. He smiled, told her he'd submit it. Her voice hardened. He never did. Let the deadline pass on purpose, then told her it probably wasn't good enough anyway. Jackson looked over at Sarah, seeing her not just as a victim, but as someone deeply wounded by hope betrayed. This wasn't poor leadership. It was surgical cruelty, and it wasn't just her. He began to watch Marcus more closely. That's when Jackson started to see something even darker. During the lull between rushes, he noticed Marcus pull a nearly full carton of milk from the fridge. Without using it, Marcus walked over to the sink and poured it down the drain. No explanation, no hesitation, just waste. Hours later, Jackson watched as Marcus opened a bag of premium single-origin beans, scooped out a token amount, and tossed the rest, nearly the whole bag, into the trash. Stale, he said aloud, as if trying to convince no one in particular. Then came the notebook. A small black ledger Marcus kept tucked in his office. After each act of waste, he would write something down under a neatly labeled column. Spoilage. It made no sense. Managers are trained to reduce costs, not inflate them. This wasn't laziness. It was systematic. It was intentional. Jackson felt the pieces start to shift. This wasn't about dominance. It wasn't just ego. It was something more sinister. But speculation wouldn't be enough. He needed evidence. That afternoon, fate offered him a crack in the door. Literally. Marcus stepped out the back alley to take a phone call, leaving the little black notebook on his desk. Jackson moved swiftly, wiping down a nearby table, his heart pounding with adrenaline. He pulled out his phone and angled it just right. The shutter was silent, but in the quiet cafe, the act still felt explosive. Click. A clear photo of the spoilage list. Later, while taking out the trash, Jackson found the discarded coffee bag, nearly full. Another photo. Solid proof. No more doubt. Jackson stared at the images on his phone, feeling their weight like bricks in his coat pocket. This wasn't about his ego or curiosity anymore. He wasn't just a trainee. He was an investigator, a whistleblower. And now, the cafe was no longer just a workplace. It was a crime scene in slow motion. Moments later, he overheard a trembling voice. A part-time student approached Marcus. "Excuse me," the young man said nervously. "I have my final exam next Tuesday. Could I leave 2 hours early?" Marcus didn't even look up from his paperwork. "Your exam is not my concern." He grabbed a pen and pulled the schedule over. With one savage stroke, he slashed through nearly all the students' shifts for the week. "There," he said, "now you've got plenty of free time." The student blinked, stunned. "But I need those hours." Marcus smirked and walked away. Power wasn't just something Marcus abused, it was something he relished. As Jackson refilled the napkin holders, he caught a quiet exchange between Linda and Sarah. "I miss how it used to be," Linda said wistfully, wiping down a table. "Before Marcus," Sarah replied, her voice a ghost of its former self. "Back when Mr. David would visit," Linda said. "He knew us, he cared. The shop used to feel alive." She let out a long, sorrowful sigh. "I wonder what he'd think if he saw this now." Jackson froze behind a shelf. Every word landed like a hammer to the chest. They were talking about him, Mr. David. They didn't know. To them, he was a memory, a legend long gone. And they were mourning a dream he had once built, now twisted into something unrecognizable. This wasn't just about fixing a toxic manager. This was about reclaiming what was once his. It was about restoring a place where people once felt proud to belong. That night, after everyone had gone home, Jackson sat alone in the back room. The cafe was quiet, the lights dim. He replayed the day's events in his mind like a film on a broken reel. The spilled latte, Linda's whispered warnings, Sarah's shaking hands, the student's pale face, the soft echo of his name, Mr. David, spoken like a ghost story. He took out his phone and stared at the evidence he'd gathered. The waste, the notebook, the discarded supplies, the lies, and finally, the pieces locked into place. This wasn't just cruelty. This was sabotage. Systematic, strategic, designed to make the store fail. A new fire lit in his chest. Jackson had spent years building this company from nothing. He had given it his name, his values, his soul. He would not let it die like this. Tomorrow, he would begin to uncover why. And this time, he wouldn't just watch. He would fight. To get the answers he needed, Jackson knew he would have to play a dangerous hand. The following evening, as the last few customers filtered out and the store began to dim with closing time, he approached Marcus with the same humility he'd carefully worn like armor since his first day. "Hey, Marcus," he said, keeping his voice low and respectful. "Would it be okay if I stayed behind for a bit? I'm still struggling with the espresso timing. I don't want to hold anyone back during rush hours." Marcus didn't even glance up. He was too focused on counting the day's cash. "Fine," he muttered. "Just clean up when you're done and lock the front door properly." With that, he grabbed his keys and left, the door shutting behind him with a heavy final click that echoed in the now empty cafe. Jackson exhaled slowly. This wasn't about pulling extra hours. This was about uncovering the truth. No longer just a trainee fumbling with latte art, Jackson had become a silent investigator, and he had just opened the door to his first real lead. He didn't touch the espresso machine. Instead, he dimmed the lights and quietly slipped into the storeroom, leaving the door cracked just enough for a view of the floor. Then he waited, tucked deep in the shadows. A calculated silence stretched across the hour. Then it came. The back alley door creaked open, the soft metallic jingle of keys. Marcus slipped inside, completely unaware he was no longer alone. Under the low red glow of the security lights, Marcus moved swiftly, instinctively, like a man who had done this before. Jackson held his breath as Marcus made a beeline for the back shelves, the expensive inventory. 2 sealed boxes of premium imported coffee beans, 1 full case of organic milk. All grabbed without hesitation. From behind the slightly ajar storeroom door, Jackson raised his phone and tapped record. The footage was clear. Marcus's face, the stolen goods, and then, through the alleyway window, the license plate of his car. This wasn't just misconduct. This was evidence. Concrete. Unmistakable. But it wasn't enough. Jackson needed motive. Sabotage wasn't about greed alone. There was something deeper, and it was time to find it. He stepped out of the storeroom and approached the one door that had always remained locked. Marcus's office. It was small, private, and more fortified than it had any right to be. From his wallet, Jackson pulled a plain white card hidden in a slit he'd not touched in years. No logo, no markings. Just one thing. Access. It was a master key, his master key, coded back when he'd first founded the company. He tapped it to the lock. A soft beep. Then the clunk of a bolt sliding open. He slipped inside. The office was a cave of secrets. No windows, no sound. Only the glow of the monitor as he powered up the computer. The password was a joke, easily bypassed. Jackson ignored the surface-level documents. He opened the email client and started scrolling. Most of it was routine, corporate memos, equipment orders. And then he saw it. A series of threads labeled with a name that hit like a punch to the stomach. The district manager of the Daily Bean, their biggest competitor. With a pounding heart, Jackson opened the chain. Every line he read added weight to the betrayal. Plans to sink the store's performance. Mentions of The right moment for transfer of control. Promises of a cash bonus. Talk of softening the location for acquisition. And then, confirmation. Marcus had been promised a personal payout for driving the flagship store into the ground and handing over the lease. Everything clicked into place. The toxic leadership, the staff demoralization, the faked spoilage, even the waste of top-tier ingredients. It had all been part of a calculated, methodical plan to sabotage his life's work from within. Jackson barely had time to process it before he heard the faint metallic jingle of keys again, from the alley. Marcus was coming back. He moved in a blur, shutting down the email, logging off the machine, blacking out the screen. He barely made it under the desk before the door opened. Footsteps, inches from his face. "Forgot my wallet," Marcus muttered, swiping it from the desktop before leaving once again. Jackson waited until the door locked behind him. Only then did he let out the breath he'd been holding. That had been too close. Once outside, in the cool stillness of the night, Jackson made the call. It was well past midnight, but time wasn't on his side. The voice on the other end picked up quickly. "Alex," Jackson said. The mask of a trainee was gone. The calm authority of a CEO had returned. "It's David." "Sir," Alex replied immediately, his most trusted head of operations. "We've got a problem at the flagship," Jackson said. In a tight, rapid summary, he relayed everything: the stolen goods, the faked loss logs, the emails. "I need a covert investigation, pull server logs, scrutinize Marcus Holloway's financials, and Alex—" "Yes? This stays between us. No one else. Understood?" "Understood, David. I'm on it." Hours later, Jackson's phone buzzed. It was Alex. "I'm in the system," he said, his voice tight with tension. "And you were right. The spoilage numbers are astronomical. It's fraud, clear as day." "And the back alley security footage." Silence, then a sigh. "That's the problem. Those files, they've been wiped. Not just deleted, scrubbed. Someone knew what they were doing." Jackson closed his eyes. Marcus was smarter than he let on. "The data, can it be recovered?" he asked. "Not easily," Alex said. "But nothing's ever truly gone. It'll take time." "You don't have time," Jackson said. "I need that footage before I step into that cafe tomorrow. Everything depends on it." "Got it. I'll assemble the team now." In two quiet apartments on opposite ends of the city, computers powered on. Screens lit up. Encryption keys unlocked. A digital race against sunrise had begun. Just before dawn, Jackson's phone rang. Alex's voice came through, raspy but determined. "We got it." A beat of silence passed between them, heavy with meaning. "It's rough," Alex added. "But it's there. And David, you need to see this for yourself." "What am I looking at?" Jackson asked, dread crawling up his spine. "There's more than theft. The footage shows Marcus meeting with someone." Jackson's breath caught. "Who?" "The district manager of the Daily Bean." Jackson's stomach dropped. "They're swapping inventory," Alex said grimly. "They unload crates of cheap, low-grade beans, replace your premium stock. They've been sabotaging your coffee, quietly ruining your brand from the inside. Every moment of confusion, every customer complaint, every crushed spirit." It all made sense now. Jackson wasn't just fighting a bad manager. He was fighting a hostile takeover disguised as internal failure. Saturday morning arrived with a different kind of heat. The cafe buzzed with life. The rush of customers, the smell of pastries, the hiss of steamed milk. But today, something else filled the air. Clarity and reckoning. Marcus barked orders across the cafe, his voice echoing like it owned the walls. Jackson, ever the invisible trainee, moved silently between tables, wiping them down, still playing his role to perfection. The bell over the entrance chimed. A subtle but unmistakable shift in energy followed. 3 people entered. They weren't there for cappuccinos. They wore dark, tailored suits and carried an unspoken weight with them. Their faces were unreadable, but their presence cut through the cafe's noise like a scalpel. Every eye turned. At the front of the group was Alex. He walked straight past the long line and stood at the counter. His voice was calm but commanding. "Marcus Holloway?" Marcus blinked. "Yes? Who's asking?" "I'm Alex, corporate oversight." There was a pause, a single breath. "This is a surprise operational audit." The performance began instantly. Marcus straightened his spine, summoned a bright, confident grin, and gestured grandly toward the cafe as if he were unveiling a masterpiece. "Of course," he boomed. "Welcome. We're always happy to demonstrate our commitment to transparency. I've implemented several new systems here, reduced waste, improved margins. The staff's sharp, the place runs tight. Best performing location in the region." From across the cafe, Jackson listened. Every word Marcus spoke felt like a twisted echo of the truth. He pictured the full bags of coffee rotting in dumpsters, the staff haunted by silence and fear. The irony was so thick it nearly suffocated him. Marcus wasn't defending a store. He was eulogizing his own downfall. Jackson stepped forward slowly, a rag in one hand, apron still tied. He kept his voice soft, humble. "Excuse me, Manager Marcus?" The voice of the silent, forgettable worker. Marcus glanced over, irritated. "Yes, what is it, trainee?" Jackson kept his eyes lowered, like a boy afraid to speak. "Sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question about the logbooks. I was reviewing the spoilage records like you asked." He hesitated, perfecting the illusion of meek confusion. "It says we reported 200 gallons of milk as spoiled last month, but—" He looked up, pure innocence shining in his eyes. "The delivery invoices show we only received 150. So, how do we spoil more milk than we ever had?" The room froze. Marcus's smile cracked. A flicker of sheer panic raced across his face. The question, so simple, so logical, was a landmine. Marcus's composure collapsed. He pointed a trembling finger, voice rising, trembling between rage and fear. "That's none of your concern. Your job is to clean tables, not question my numbers." He stepped forward aggressively. "You're not paid to think. Get back to work or you're done here." Before the silence could stretch, Alex stepped forward, calm and surgical. "Actually," he said coolly, "that's a very good question for an audit. We'll need to see that. Logbook now." Marcus went stiff, and something in Jackson shifted. He began to untie the dirty apron, slowly and deliberately. He folded it in half, then set it down on the counter with reverence. When he looked up again, there was no fear in his eyes, only calm authority. He stepped forward, no longer Jackson the trainee. He met Marcus's stare with the quiet power of someone who had come home. "You said my job wasn't to question your numbers," he said, his voice rising with conviction. "But I believe it is." The cafe was deathly still. "Because my name is not Jackson." He paused. "My name is David Chin." The entire room drew a collective breath. "I own this company." The blood drained from Marcus's face. David gave a small nod. Alex raised a remote and clicked it. The cafe's menu screens flickered. The pictures of pastries disappeared, replaced by security footage. Grainy, but damning. The back alley, captured in quiet night vision, played out like a courtroom drama. There was Marcus, lifting boxes, sealed containers of premium coffee, loading them into his trunk. Gasps filled the cafe. "You wondered about the impossible spoilage numbers?" David said. His voice was calm, cold. "This is your answer. It was never about spoilage. It was theft." Another click. The video was replaced by sharp, crystal-clear images. Emails, highlighted phrases, damning words. "Declining reputation. Prime for takeover. Your generous finder's fee." "This," David continued, stepping closer, his voice now full of controlled fury, "is worse than theft." He locked eyes with Marcus. "This is betrayal. You poisoned our product. You sabotaged our service. You tried to kill this store from within, all for a payout from our competitor." Marcus stumbled back, staring at the evidence. He looked small now, empty. David turned slightly, addressing the room. Not just his staff, but everyone who had witnessed the unraveling. "Marcus Holloway," he declared, his voice like a judge's gavel, "for theft, sabotage, and conspiracy. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately." He turned to the two other men in suits, who were now stepping forward. "Escort him off the premises." "No, wait, please," Marcus pleaded. His voice was broken now, desperate. David didn't even look back. The security team took Marcus gently by the arms and led him to the door. The bell chimed once as the front door closed behind him. His reign was over, and silence followed. It was the kind of silence that felt sacred. No hiss from the espresso machine, no music, no clatter of cups, just stillness. Linda leaned back against the counter, eyes misty with disbelief. Sarah had one hand pressed to her mouth, unable to speak. Then, finally, David turned. The strength in his shoulders melted slightly. His tone softened. He bowed his head. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I let you all down." He looked up, his voice thick with honesty. "I was so busy running this company from the top, I didn't realize how far it had fallen at the bottom. I should have protected you, and I didn't." He paused. "But I will now." Then he turned to Sarah. "Sarah," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You never gave up. You held on to your creativity, even when it was punished. You never let go of your dignity. That's the kind of leader this place needs." A warm smile crossed his face. "Effective immediately, you are the new store manager." Sarah stood frozen. Then the tears came. But this time, they were joy. She took a deep breath, walked straight to Mr. Hung's table, and said, "Please allow me to remake your drink, my way." Back behind the counter, her hands moved with newfound freedom. She poured the honey lavender latte, served it with pride. Mr. Hung sipped. "This," he said with a beam, "is the Aroma Bruise I remember." David smiled. He walked to the back room, pulled a clean apron from the hook, and slipped it over his head, not as a disguise, but as a choice. He stepped behind the counter and looked to Sarah. "All right, boss," he said with a grin. "Where do you need me?" Laughter broke the tension. The team stood in awe. And just like that, the healing began. Later, as he handed off a latte, David spoke softly, just loud enough for his team to hear. "I almost fired Marcus on day one. I had the power. One call." He shook his head. "But power doesn't fix broken things. Being here, being Jackson, reminded me what leadership really is." He looked at each of them, his voice low and full of truth. "Leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. It's not about control. It's about service." And in that moment, the cafe was reborn. Not with grand declarations, but with quiet cups of coffee, shared work, and mutual respect. The tyrant was gone. And in his place, something stronger had taken root. Hope. Because true leadership, David had learned, isn't built on fear. It's built on trust. And the question we all face, in work and in life, is this: will you lead with fear, or will you choose respect? Let your answer be known, not with words, but with the life you build.